There are stories that don't need to be grand as a candle. A room no one enters anymore. A memory you once tried to forget, but it never let you go. You're about to read a 15-chapter story, not too short to forget, not too long to tire. Each chapter is another moment you sit in a tribunal without a judge, without an accuser, with only a flame that refuses to die and whispers echoing from a life long buried. This is not a horror story, not exactly a ghost tale either. It is simply a room where a soul that once broke a promise is waiting for you to speak. If you have about as much time as it takes to watch a film, try reading. You don't need to believe, just remember. And if you can still hear the faint tapping from behind the wall, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now pull your blanket up, dim the lights gently, because your hearing is about to begin. The candle and the sealed door, you wake, not from noise, but from something colder than silence, the feeling of being watched by a room that has no eyes. The floor beneath you is stone, worn smooth by feet that must have walked here centuries before yours. You reseated on a tall-back chair that doesn't creak when you move, but groans faintly when you breathe, like it remembers too many confessions, too many bodies that forgot how to sit without guilt. Above you, the ceiling rises in a vaulted arch, blackened by centuries of soot and the whisper of incense. This place smells of wax, damp limestone, and something older like dried tears on wool. You are alone, but the air is not still. It listens. The chamber is long, rectangular, and symmetrical, designed for trials, not prayers. Where a judge's bench should be, there is only an absence carved into the wall, a space where no one has sat for a very long time. No books, no gavel, no crucifix, just a faint dust outline where something used to rest, something heavy and shaped like authority. At the center of the tribunal stands a stone table, unadorned, cold, and low. No markings, no names, just the ghost of hands once placed upon it. And at the far end, illuminated by nothing but itself, stands a candle tall, ivory, and its flame moves, but it casts no shadow. You don't remember entering this place. You don't remember being summoned, but you do feel beneath the sternum something pulling tight, like your soul is being reminded of an appointment it tried to forget. You rise and walk toward the candle, your footsteps muffled by the dust-heavy air. The closer you get, the louder it becomes, not in sound, but in presence. The flame pulses faintly, synchronized with a rhythm you can't name, not your heartbeat. Older than that, you lean close. It does not burn. It observes. Then you notice the parchment on the table, thin, brittle, folded 4 times and sealed with a broken ring of wax. The imprint long faded. You unfold it with care. The writing inside is spare, precise, and terribly familiar. This tribunal does not ask. It waits. The one who remembers may leave. The one who refuses will remain until they do. Beneath the sentence is a symbol, not a signature, but an emblem you half recognize, a flame splitting into 2 tongues, mirrored like lungs. You placed the paper down. The candle flutters, and suddenly you're not here, you're there. Somewhere older, somewhere burning, a wooden ceiling above your head. Smoke screaming, the snap of rope under tension. A voice cries out your name, except it's not your name. It's a name from another century, a name your mouth almost remembers how to form. You turn and see yourself cloaked in wool, holding a scroll, watching as 3 men in chains are dragged toward fire. Your face is calm, your eyes are averted. You are standing in judgment. You blink your back. The chamber is silent again, but your skin carries the heat. On the table, where there was only parchment before, there now lies a charred scrap of cloth, coarse, blackened at the corners, and faintly marked with an embroidered cross, nearly dissolved by flame. You reach out, and when your fingers touch it, you flinch, not from pain, but from memory. A small voice somewhere in your chest gasps, not yours, but someone who once begged to be heard. The candle flickers, not from wind, but from agreement. It remembers too. You look around, there are no doors, no hinges, no locks, but you are sealed in. The walls bear faint imprints, shadows of tapestries long removed, outlines of sconces without torches, a single stone with a shallow groove that runs like a tear from ceiling to floor. Everything in this room used to be something else. Everything has seen more than it should, and now you understand. You are not here to testify. You are here to remember. Not what they did, not what you witnessed, but what you chose not to stop. The flame will not ask questions. The room will not accuse you. They don't need to. They have all the time in the world, and only one task: to keep you here until you say it yourself. The first chapter of your judgment has already begun, and you are the only one who forgot to bring your voice. The eyeless judge, you sit back in the chair, not because you are tired, but because the air has thickened. It coats your lungs like smoke that never cooled. The flame remains steady on its pedestal, its light neither growing nor dimming. But your vision begins to blur, not from fear, not from tears, but from something shifting in the atmosphere, like the world around you is about to remember something before you do. You hear at first a faint dragging sound, not footsteps, not breath, just the sound of something weighty being pulled across stone. You turn toward the far wall where only smooth masonry met your eyes before. But now, there is a figure. At first you think it is carved from the wall itself, a statue set in shadow, but it moves, not like flesh, like memory sculpted from ash. The figure is tall, draped in a long judicial robe of some forgotten order. The fabric hangs as though it is underwater, rippling with no wind, where the face should be. There is a mask flat, featureless, pale like clay, and where the eyes should be, only two hollow sockets, not empty, but filled with something darker than absence, a suggestion of watching without sight. The figure does not speak. It does not move forward. It only tilts its head ever so slightly, the way someone does when listening to a lie they've heard too many times. You do not ask who it is. You already know. Somehow, you understand. This is the judge. Not of crimes, of memory. It raises one hand along, dry, skin stretched thin like vellum endpoints. Not at you, but at the candle. The flame sputters for the first time since your arrival, and with that flicker, the air changes again. You are pulled backward not by force, but by gravity twisted in reverse. You do not leave the room, but the room leaves you, and now you are somewhere else, a cloister called stone arches, Latin echoing from mouths you cannot see. You wear different clothes, woolen ink-stained, with a sigil embroidered on your sleeve. You are kneeling before a lectern, pen in hand, copying something, a scripture. No, a list of names, all in red ink, all marked with crosses, not the kind of crosses that bless, the kind that condemn. You blink. Back in the tribunal. The judge has not moved, but in your hand now is a quill black and its tip still wet. The table before you bears no ink, yet on its surface there now appears a single name. Not one, consciously, but it causes your hand to tremble. You try to speak the name, nothing comes. The tribunal is mute for a reason. Here speech is not how truth is told. You look at the mask again. It hasn't moved, and yet its silence has changed shape. It is no longer watching you. It is waiting. You wonder how many others have sat where you now sit. How many have faced this same figure, the same flame. You feel suddenly that you are not alone, not just now, but never. That the tribunal is filled with the weight of those who came before, their unspoken judgments absorbed into the stone, into the wax, into the air you breathe. The judge raises its other hand. Two fingers extend. Two, not one. The second trial begins. The candle flares, and the chamber peals again. This time, it is a cell. Wooden walls, iron latch, straw on the floor. A man sits in chains, his eyes bruised, his mouth broken. You are outside the bars, holding a book, reading. Your lips move, but the words make no sound. The man begs, not for mercy, for correction. You have the wrong name, he whispers. It wasn't me. You lower the book. Look away. His voice fades. You feel shame, but not for him. For yourself, for how easily you swallowed a lie and called it judgment. You blink again, return. The judge is closer now. You did not see it move, but it is. Closer, the mask remains blank, but the air around it tightens. And suddenly you feel the mask, ISNT, covering it all. It is the absence of a face that once belonged to you. You stand, unsure why. You feel something in your throat, caught between apology and confession. But before you can open your mouth, a new object appears on the table. A gavel, small, wooden. Unmarked, you reach for it. The judge tilts its head again. Condemnation. No way to tell. You hold the gavel. It is light to light, like it has not yet been used, like it's waiting for its first verdict. You raise it slowly, trembling. But as you do, the candle dims. The flame draws in, shrinking. You hesitate, and the judge raises its finger once more, not to this time, but one, the first name, the first truth, the first fall. You lower the gavel, place it back. The judge recedes not by walking, but by memory unwinding. You blink, it is gone. The candle returns to normal. The name on the table vanishes, but the quill in your hand remains, and the gavel is no longer wood. It is wax, still warm, still soft, not yet hardened into judgment. But it will be when you're ready, when the next name return, when the tribunal no longer needs silence, because you finally speak. The parchment of blood and ash, the candle does not flicker when you sleep. In fact, you're not sure you ever sleep anymore. What replaces rest is a stillness so absolute. It feels less like unconsciousness and more like drowning in a pond of memory. When you open your eyes, the room is unchanged. Same stone, same air, same chair that knows your posture better than your spine. But now the table bears something new, folded, curled at the edges, stained with age and something darker. A parchment, not like the one before. This one breathes. You swear it exhales when your fingers approach. You hesitate. The texture is rough, more hide than paper. It smells of copper and smoke. A seal once held it shut, but now lies broken beside its split, not by hand, but by flame. You open it slowly, and the ink, if it is ink at all, is a deep, muddy red, streaked in places like it was written in haste. It is a document, a confession, or perhaps a sentence. The Latin is archaic, but your eyes translate it before your mind catches up. We, the keepers of fire and record, do here name the soul whose silence was mistaken for guilt, and whose death was our convenience. No name follows, only the same mirrored flame you saw before. Below that, a series of words scratched out, violently ripped through by someone who regretted writing them the moment they did, but you can still make them out. A list, not of heretics, of witnesses. Every name followed by a symbol, a cross, a dagger, a circle, and then near the bottom your name. But not your name. The name from the vision, the name shouted across flame and rope and firewood beneath it. Circle present but did not speak. You step back. The candle flares, slightly not as warning, but as confirmation. The parchment continues to change beneath your gaze. Lines appear that weren't there moments ago. A second layer of ink there, more frantic, written in another hand, scrawled at an angle, as if the writer had no table and little time. He knew. He chose to forget. He watched. He survived. That is the sin. You run your fingers over the words and they smear not, because they are fresh, but because they remember being written. The table beneath begins to hum, a low vibration like the murmur of 1,000 cloisters echoing the same unanswered prayer. You close the parchment and try to step away, but the chamber shifts again. No spinning, no flashing, just a soft folding of time like parchment bent in the middle. You stand now in a scriptorium. Cold light filters through high-stained glass. A dozen monks work in silence. No one speaks. Every movement is ink, scratch, turn, breathe, and in the center yourself, younger, paler, wearing the robe of a novice. You are transcribing something, but not scripture. Testimonies. You recognize the same handwriting from the parchment now resting back in the tribunal. Someone leans over your shoulder. A superior, his voice is flat. Do not copy the names marked with the circle. They have confessed nothing. They are neither guilty nor useful, you nod. And yet, you write them anyway. You do not know why. Perhaps it is spite. Perhaps something older than principle. Perhaps to remember, but that list becomes record. That record becomes evidence. That evidence becomes fire. You blink. Return. The parchment is gone. In its place is a small inkwell and an empty scroll, and a single black feather laid across it, freshly plucked, the quill sharp and The tribunal is teaching you, not with words, with memory, with silence that accuses, with flame that illuminates what you buried. The judge does not appear this time, but you feel its gaze. From the stone, from the wax, from your own hands. You look down, your fingertips are stained red. Not metaphorically. Truly, the ink or blood remains. You try to wipe it on your robe. It does not come off. The candle pulses again, softer this time, like a breath drawn inward. It's waiting, not for apology, for continuation. You understand now. This is not a place of punishment. It is a place of remembering, of completing the record. And until you finish writing what you chose to forget, you will remain the last witness to a tribunal that no longer needs to speak, because the guilt has always been recorded in the silent library of our Bruna. The scroll remains blank no matter how tightly you grip the quill, no matter how deeply you breathe or how close you lean toward the table. The candle offers no warmth, only clarity, the kind that stings. You close your eyes and whisper the name you saw on the parchment, not your name, but the name you once answered to when robes hung looser around your frame and obedience still felt righteous. The chamber listens. You feel the floor shift beneath you, not physically, but in remembrance. The walls no longer echo stone. They soften, and when you open your eyes again, the tribunal is gone. You are standing beneath an archway carved from wood blackened by time and soot, with Latin inscriptions spiraling across its edges like vines strangling a church. Our Bruna, you do not read it. You recognize it. The library, not just any library. The one beneath the one they never let novices enter. The one reserved for doctrine too dangerous to destroy, too shameful to teach. It is not large, but it feels endless. The air here does not move. It clings to your skin like forgotten breath. There are no lamps, yet you see. The light seems to emanate from the texts themselves. Some are wrapped in cloth, others bound in skin. Every book is chained. Some pages twitch slightly, as if reacting to your presence not with welcome, but with memory. You take a step forward. The dust beneath your soles does not rise. It recoils. You reach for a shelf and hesitate. The spines are unmarked. You must choose not with your eyes, but with guilt. Your hand lifts slowly, trembles, then lands on a thin volume leather, cracked, unassuming. You open it. No title, no preface. Only a date, October 13th, 1139, and below it a name you once signed but never claimed. The page flips on its own. Another entry. Another name. You recognize none of them, but your stomach does. Each one tightens your ribs like old ropes. Each name belonged to a voice you ignored, a face you refused to meet during testimony, a back turned toward flame while your own stayed warm. The further you read, the heavier the book grows. Not metaphorically, physically, as if it does not want to be held anymore, or as if it needs your hands to remember what they carried. You reach the final page. It is blank. No, not blank erased. Scraped clean. Someone tried to forget something that could not be forgotten. You press your thumb to the parchment. It pulses faintly, like skin over bone. And then you hear it, not aloud, but in the pit of your chest, a sound like prayer whispered by someone who no longer believes it matters. You turn, the shelves have changed. They bend now, slightly inward, as though leaning towards you or closing around you. Books you didn't notice before now press into your view. One stands out, enormous and chained, standing upright on its own pedestal in the center of the room. A book not kept, but displayed. You approach. Its cover bears a familiar symbol, the mirrored flame, but here it is different. One half flickers upright. The other is inverted as if drowning. You lift the cover, your breath catches. The first page is not parchment. It is mirror, dull cracked, but it shows your face, and behind you a shadow. You whirl, nothing there. You turn back. The mirror is black. The next page is text, written in a hand you can't deny. Your own. The record of what I did not say. It is not a book of actions, but omissions. Every line is a silence. Every passage a turning away. Names, events, choices, moments where the truth begged you to speak and you said nothing. As you read, you feel the temperature drop. Your breath fogs the air. The candlelight, no. There is no candle here. And yet, light persists. It comes from the ink. The letters glow faintly, like coals buried in ash. You reach a final entry. It is incomplete. The sentence breaks. A single blot of ink. A pause, then a question. If silence is survival worth your soul? You close the book. The air shudders. The room trembles. Dust falls in silent patterns from beams overhead. Somewhere behind you, a breath is drawn, not by a man, not by a beast, but by a building, by stone itself. You turn. The shelves part. A staircase descends. No torches, no markings, just stone steps that vanish into the dark. You know where it leads. Not because you remember going down them, but because you never dared. Not in life. Not even in dream. Yet now the tribunal has shown you what you refuse to read. You step forward. The book remains open behind you. Its last line unfinished. The library says nothing. It has said nothing for centuries. But now you understand. Silence is not the absence of voice. It is a witness, a verdict, a sentence not yet carried out. You descend. The knocking inside the wall, the staircase swallows you, not with violence but with indifference. Each step is worn, shallow in the center, as if thousands of feet once fled down them, or were dragged. The further you descend, the less you feel time. There is no measure of light or sound. The only rhythm is your breathing, and even that begins to echo, not just in the stairwell but within you, as if your chest itself has become a hollow hallway. The walls close in, not physically, but in weight. You feel them, remember you. Not this you perhaps, but a shape of you that passed long ago. You try to count your steps, but numbers flee your tongue. Your hands begin to tremble, not from fear, from recognition. The air at the bottom is not cold, it is still. So still that when you finally reach the final stone, you know you've stepped not into a room, but into something that has waited. You stand in a circular chamber, no torchlight, no windows, only a faint luminescence from the walls themselves, like stone stained by memory. The floor bears no dust. The ceiling, if there is one, disappears into black. Around the perimeter, 12 alcoves carved into the stone, each one bricked shut except for a thin slit at eye. You do not approach them yet. You know, they see before they reveal. In the center stands nothing but a wooden bench, one that looks newer than the rest of the room, as if someone replaced it recently, though no one has entered here in centuries. You sit, because your legs do not wish to stand, because the weight in your stomach settles differently here, because your bones remember sitting in this place before. You exhale, and then you hear it, faint, from behind the wall. Knock, not a creak, not a tap, a deliberate, slow, rhythmic knocking. 3 times, then stillness. You rise. Approach the nearest alcove. The bricked wall breathes. You place your ear to the slit. Silence. Then, as if pulled from the depth of a sealed throat, a whisper. Are you ready now? You step back. The voice is neither male nor female. Not angry, not welcoming, just present. You turn to the next alcove. Nothing the next. Stillness. But the 4th one, the moment you approach, something inside shifts. The air becomes heavier. The knocking returns, this time louder, more urgent. Knock, knock, knock. A pause, then scratch. A faint dragging sound like nails across wood or bone across plaster. You speak. Who's there? No reply. Knock. At the base of the wall, something protrudes. A corner fabric. You crouch, tug, it resists, then releases. A bundle of cloth, stiff and yellowed, falls into your hand. You unwrap it. Inside, a wooden rosary, burnt half-tarred beads, blackened and stuck together with some old residue that might have once been blood. Tied to it, a slip of parchment, brittle and torn, bearing only 3 words, not yet judged. You rise. The air shifts again. The walls hum faintly. Like a cathedral before dawn, like a tomb before exhumation, you feel them. All 12 alcoves. They watch, not with sight, with memory. And now they begin to answer. One by one, you hear them knock, knock, each echoing differently, as if each alcove houses a different rhythm, a different soul. Some slow, some frantic, some barely audible, some violent. You begin to walk in a circle, pausing before each listening, measuring. The sixth one weeps not tears. The sound a faint, wet, hollow sob that never completes. The ninth murmurs prayers but backward, the syllables spilling into each other like water circling a drain. And the 12th, the final, it does not knock, it does not whisper, it does not weep. It breathes, deep, measured, matching your own. You place your palm against it. The wall is warm, too warm it pulses once, then again, and with it, a flash, a vision not with eyes, but from beneath the skin. You see fire, not cleansing fire, not trial fire, a fire built by hands in secret, a pit dug beneath the cloister, lined with books, robes, bones, a body dragged, not burned, hidden. You see yourself, or the version of yourself you keep inheriting, watching, holding the rosary, looking away again. The body disappears into the earth, the dirt packs itself tight, and the breath, the one you hear now, continues. Undisturbed, you step back, the wall breathes in turn, and then it speaks not aloud, but into your teeth, into the hollow of your skull. You buried me with silence. Now I ask for memory, you cannot respond, your throat is stone, but your heart answers. It beats harder, faster, matching the breath. You fall to your knees, not from pain, from gravity, a moral gravity older than language. You clutch the rosary. Its charred beads press into your flesh. They do not burn, they imprint. 1, 2, 12. Each one names a silence you chose. A moment you stepped aside when history asked you to speak, and the knocking resumes from every wall, not in unison, in judgment. It surrounds you, encloses you, does not accuse, only demands you listen, not to words, but to the space between them. And then it stops, not because it is done, because it has said enough. You stand, slowly, your knees unsteady, your breath still shared with the 12th alcove. The rosary is gone, dissolved. Only the parchment remains in your hand. You'll read it again, not yet judged. You now understand. These are not tombs, these are testimonies, locked, encased, not to forget but to wait, for the one who caused them, for the one who must unseal them, not with keys, but with remembrance. The candle will not guide you here. This place is beneath light, beneath flame, but not beyond consequence. You return to the staircase, climb slowly. As you rise, the knocking fades, not because it ceases, because it has passed into you. When you re-emerge into the tribunal, the table bears a new object, a stone, small, smooth, carved with a single word. You do, and the walls exhale. The memory of the man who burned the stone on the table remains cool despite the warmth of the flame. You lift it slowly, expecting it to weigh more, but it is almost feather-light, as if hollowed from the inside by something older than erosion, something like guilt. You run your fingers over the single carved word. Listen, the grooves are shallow, but your skin responds to them like open wounds. You try to speak, but the room silences you before the sound leaves your mouth. The candle dims, not out of exhaustion, but in mourning. You look around. The walls are unchanged. The tribunal chair still stands empty. The gavel of wax still lies beside the empty scroll. But something has shifted, invisibly. The air now smells of smoke. Not the smoke of candles or hearths, but of burning fabric, hair, flesh, memory. You move to the corner where the walls first breathed. There, in the stone, is a cracked, thin vertical. Easy to miss. You trace it with your fingers. It pulses once. You push it, yields. The wall does not open. It folds slowly, like a page in a book that resists being read. Behind it, a stairway, narrow and steep, winding downward, not in circles, but in a spiral too tight for comfort. You descend. The smoke thickens not physically, but spiritually. You feel it in your eyes, your teeth, your lungs. Not choking, reminding at the bottom, a door, wood reinforced with iron, scorched but intact. You touch the handle. It is hot. You turn it anyway. The door swings open. The room inside is a pyre that never extinguished. The fire is not present, but its shape remains. Blackened stones, charred beams overhead, ash piled like snow in the corners, and in the center, chains still bolted to the floor, ending in open clasps, stained by rust and something darker. You walk in. The temperature does not rise. A stillness that vibrates. On the wall opposite, something glows faintly. A mark, drawn in soot or blood. A symbol not of faith but of warning, a triangle split down the middle by a single vertical line. Beneath it, words he did not scream. That was his crime. You step closer. The wall whispers not from cracks or wind, but from memory. And in a flash, you are no longer standing. You are kneeling. Hooded figures circle you, a rope coils at your feet. A priest murmurs something in Latin you can't quite catch, and then stops. Someone looks at you, eyes filled not with rage but with confusion. Why doesn't he beg? They ask. Another replies, because he knows it won't matter. And then the flame begins. You feel nothing but you hear it. Bone cracking, fabric curling, breath breaking into coughs. You are not the man being burned, but you are watching, and you did not look away. That, perhaps, was worse. You blink. The vision fades. The room is as it was. Silent. Dead. You turn. Behind you now hangs a robe, not on a hook, suspended by nothing. Floating, slightly. A monk's habit. Singed, torn at the neck. Its hood still smokes. Beneath it, the faint shape of a man, no face, no voice, only posture. Kneeling, waiting. He lifts his head. There are no eyes, only the memory of where eyes once were. He does not move, but you understand he has seen you. The figure does not ask anything. He offers something instead, a breath. Not audible, but it enters your lungs. Your throat closes. Your chest convulses. Not in pain. In recognition. You remember. Not a scene. A choice. A decision so subtle, so silent, that you convinced yourself it never happened. You had been asked once quietly, carefully by this man, the man now kneeling in robes of ash. He had whispered to you in the cloister, "They will come for me. Will you speak?" And you had said, "I can't." He had nodded. And then, a day later, they had taken him. You were not there when they dragged him. But you did nothing to stop it. And afterward, when the ashes were swept and the chains cooled, you had signed the record. Nothing irregular occurred. The figure rises now, slowly, still without sound, still without weight. He walks past you, steps into the ash, lifts the chains, and sets them down upon the table that now stands where there was none before. A new table, smaller, circular, covered in soot. The figure places something upon it. A jawbone, human, burned but intact. The teeth are clenched. Inside the mouth, a scroll. You reach for it. It slides easily into your hand. The scroll is sealed with wax, unbroken. Its symbol is familiar. Two hands joined at the wrist. One skeletal, one living. You break the seal. Inside, a single sentence. He burned without screaming, so you could sleep in peace. You drop the scroll, but it clings to your fingers like wet cloth. The figure vanishes, not in smoke, in silence. His presence folds into the room like breath into lungs. The robe falls empty to the ground. The table is gone, but the jawbone remains. And now, the candle from the tribunal flickers into being here, at your feet, lit, steady, and suddenly, everything is quiet, not peaceful. Finally, you return up the stairs, each step heavier. Your body carries weight now. Not physical, moral. A heater is not heated, but consequence. When you reach the chamber again, the gavel of wax is melted. The scroll is no longer blank. One line has written itself. The second silence has spoken. You sit, and the candle dims, not out of sorrow, but out of recognition. Judgment does not come in flames. It comes in memory, and now you remember. The robe without a collar. You do not rise from the chair immediately. The wax from the gavel has spread, crawling across the surface of the tribunal table like a slow infection, congealing in small rivers that harden into unreadable glyphs. You try to trace one with your fingertip, but it burns not the skin, but the mind. You feel your name bending beneath the surface, reshaping itself into a title you once held, long before you learned that titles can condemn more easily than they protect. The candle flutters. It does not die, it beckons, and you follow, not through another door, there is none. The tribunal changes around you, not violently, but fluidly, like a room remembering itself differently. The walls warp inward, becoming narrow, paneled with dark wood. The air smells not of ash, not of fire, but of wet wool and mildew. Monastery laundry, robes left to rot too long in stone basins. You are in a hallway now. Low ceiling, flickering sconces. No footsteps echo here. Even your breath is muffled. Along the walls hang habits, dozens of them. Monks' robes, novice hoods, chasubles embroidered with gold thread. But all are headless, suspended on wooden beams, not mannequins. The cloth twists in unseen wind, and none have collars. You walk slowly, as if your presence might wake them. Each robe hangs like a memory stripped of its owner's face, shivering slightly, as though resentful of being left behind. The hallway narrows, and then stops. At the end, a mirror, tall, full-length, with a frame carved from ivory, not polished. Dull yellow cracked. You approach it, and at first it shows nothing. Then fog, then yourself, but not as you are. Not dressed in plain cloth, not unarmed. The mirror shows you in full ceremonial dress. A robe, unlike the others. Dark crimson, with a hem stained black. Your hands hold a censer. Smoke curls from it, heavy and suffocating. And around your neck, a collar, White starched, clean, a sign of office, a sign of rank, a sign of silence. You raise your hand to your throat in real time. There is nothing there. You look again. The mirror now shows the collar burning, curling, writhing like a live thing, and beneath it your skin scorched with a single symbol, the inverted triangle again. You blink, the mirror shatters, not explosively, quietly. It cracks along your image's spine, then collapses inward. The fragments turn to dust before they touch the floor. Behind where the mirror stood, a passage narrower than before, barely shoulder wide. You enter sideways. The rope catches, something tugs it. You look back. One of the hanging garments has moved, no wind. Its sleeve is stretched, wrapped around the edge of your robe like a hand you pull away. It resists. You rip free. The cloth tears. No sound. You step through. The passage opens into a circular room, a vestry or what remains of one. Benches line the walls, cracked and damp. On the floor a basin, shallow, empty, but stained red, not fresh, ancient, dried into the stone-like scripture. You kneel before it, not because you want to, because you've done it before, long ago. On your first night of initiation, you had been told to wash your hands, only your hands, yet that the water had smelled strange. Of iron you had asked nothing. And later, when the screaming began in the courtyard, you had gone to bed and faced the wall. You remember it now vividly. The weight of obedience. The comfort of not asking. The pleasure of being allowed to remain untouched. You look into the empty basin. The water returns. Not real, but you see your reflection in it. This time, younger, eyes sharper, robes pristine. You are smiling, just barely. The satisfaction of inclusion. Then the reflection changes. A face behind yours. A novice. Face pale. Eyes wide. Mouth open in protest. Then hands rough, grabbing, dragging. The smile fades. You say nothing. And the water stills your eyes. The robe you wear now feels heavier. It wasn't torn before, but now it is. A gash across the back. You cannot see it, but you feel it. Cold air through cloth. A wound made by memory. Not forgiven. You walk to the wall. There, hung on a single rusty nail, is a collar. White, clean, folded, waiting. You pick it up. It does not resist. It flutters slightly. You hold it against your throat. It fits perfectly. The moment it touches your neck, you feel it tighten, not physically, but morally. A familiar constriction, the kind that follows when you accept authority not as a burden but as shelter. The candle flares behind you. You turn, it is there, though you did not bring it. It has followed, or it was always waiting. The room dims. The collar brightens. It glows faintly now. Your reflection returns on the polished brass of the basin. Your face is the same, but your mouth is sealed, not stitched, fused, by heat, by faith, by choice. The tribunal does not appear, but the room shifts, not visibly. Spiritually, you are being watched again, not by a figure, by the collar. It judges not your words, but your silence, and it waits to see what you will do now. You remove it, slowly. It resists, not physically, through memory. But you succeed. You place it in the basin. It does not sink. It burns softly, without smoke, without flame. As it vanishes, the robe on your shoulders lightens, the gash across the back heals, and a new path opens in the wall ahead, narrow stone marked with the inverted triangle, and beneath it, 3 words carved in Latin. Nolus testis te set. No witness remains silent. You step through. The tribunal awaits. The room with 12 doors, the door behind you seals without sound, without finality, as though the archive of names merely paused its breath rather than surrendered it. You now stretch as a corridor, so still, so impossibly straight, it seems to pierce through memory itself. You walk because there is no other choice, and with each step, the quill in your hand vibrates not with energy, but with expectation, as though it is aware of what lies ahead and mourns your ignorance. The floor beneath you is tiled in a pattern you can decipher at first, dark triangles within pale circles, within darker squares, all slightly misaligned, as though drawn by a trembling hand trying desperately to follow a forgotten geometry. The walls are blank, no torches and no alcoves, just stone, smooth and damp, breathing like skin under cold wind. And then the corridor opens, not dramatically, but intimately, like a confessional booth shifting into a cathedral scale, a chamber, perfectly round, no ceiling, only shadow. And along the walls, 12 doors, identical in size, each a different wood: birch ash, elm and beech, walnut, chestnut, oak, ebony larch, hornbeam, maple. One you do not recognize at all, and knotted like bone. Each door bears no inscription, only a sigil carved into the center. One is marked with the shape of a tongue tied into a knot, another with a candle extinguished mid, a third with a balance tipped by a single feather. You approach the center of the chamber where stands a pedestal. No more, no less. Your hand tightens around the broken quill. The implication is clear. 3 doors, 3 memories, 3 verdicts, 12 chances. You circle once, slowly, listening, feeling, waiting for the air to change. And it does barely before the door carved from oak. The sigil here is a mouth sewn shut. Its stitches forming a crown. You choose it because you recognize it, because you once wore its meaning. The door opens at your touch. You step through. The light shifts. You are back in the refectory, younger robed, clean. You sit at the center table, bread before you, a cup of wine untouched. Around you a dozen novices, silent, frightened. At the far end of the hall, 2 men argue. One accuses the other of heresy, blasphemy, treason. The second man says nothing. His hands are stained with ink. A translator, a scribe. He had written something in the margins of an ancient text, something you were told to ignore. You remember this night. The prior had asked you, later, if you had seen anything. You had said no, because the bread had been warm, because the wine had been sweet, because silence kept your plate full and your bed dry. You blink. The room fades. The chamber returns. The hourglass continues. A third of the sand is gone. You step back, shaken but not surprised. The second door draws you in before you even choose it. The one made of ebony. Its sigil is a face divided into 2 profiles, one smiling, one silent. Inside the vestry again. But Odoroting, you stand behind the curtain during morning confession. You hear the novice kneel. His voice is thin. He speaks of a brother who touched him. Repeatedly, you hear the name. You know the accused. He is your friend, your superior. Wait. The boy sobs. He says, please, I don't want him punished. Just moved. You exit the curtain. You tell the boy he is brave. He promised discretion. You never report it. The boy is found 3 days later in the well, his robe still tied, his feet bare. You never visit the well again. Until now. The water's black. The reflection in it is not yours. It is his. You fall back. The vision ends. The hourglass cracks slightly. You look at the sand. It moves faster now. You must choose the third. You hesitate. All doors feel heavier. But the one carved from the bone-like wood draws your hand. Its sigil is unreadable or not. That is also an eye, or perhaps a flame twisted into a question. You push inside. A courtroom, but not the tribunal. This is secular. Rough stone walls. A crowd of villagers. A woman in chains. She stands accused of poisoning cattle, of whispering curses in the night, of bearing a child no one ever saw. You are the witness. The respected cleric. The man whose words will sway the bailiff. You know she is not guilty. But you also know her husband refused your advances months ago. You say nothing. You do not lie. But you allow the lie to live. She is dragged from the hall. You never see her again. But you do remember the next season. When your crops failed. When the well dried. When the monks stopped singing at dawn. The air turns cold. The door dissolves behind you. The chamber is back. All 12 doors remain. But 9 now are sealed with black wax. The hourglass is nearly empty. The quill in your hand crumbles to dust at your feet. A new object appears. A collar, torn, burnt, wrapped in it. A parchment with your own handwriting. A confession, unfinished. You kneel, you try to write. But no ink comes, no words. Only a whisper behind your left ear. You chose truth. Too late. You rise the doors. Watch you now. Not with malice. With verdicts. The candle is gone. You are your own light. The sand falls. The pedestal cracks. And above you, the ceiling begins to lower, not in weight, but in silence. The next judgment awaits, and you are not yet ready.
The archive of withheld names. The stone corridor narrows as you walk, each step echoing with memory. Faint inscriptions claw at the walls like whispers trapped in mortar. You feel watched, not by eyes, but by records, never meant to be read. A vault door stands ahead, carved with names you don't remember, but your skin reacts to each as if they once lived beneath it. The iron ring set into its center is cold, and when you pull it, the door groans like an oath long broken. The chamber within is not a library, it is a confession sealed in stone. Shelves stretch high into the darkness, not filled with books, but with slips of parchment rolled tightly and tied with red cord. No labels, no catalogs, just a silence so thick you fear that speaking might reawaken what was buried here. You walk slowly. The parchment smells of salt and vinegar, of dried sweat and moldy vellum. Each scroll pulses slightly, as though they inhale as you pass. At the far end stands a pedestal. Upon it, a ledger thicker than any you've ever seen. Its page is bound in leather that creaks when you open it, as if it has waited too long to be touched. Inside, lines and lines of names. Some legible, some smeared. Some clawed out with what looks like fingernails. You turn a page and stop. There it is. Your name, or the one you once held, buried under the title you used to wear like a shield. It is not crossed out. It is underlined. And beside it, a symbol, not the mirrored flame, not the inverted triangle, a new one, a quill snapped in half. The mark of a witness who withheld. You try to turn the page again. It resists. You force it underneath a blank space, and then, as if ink seeps from your presence, letters begin to bloom. A testimony, but not yours. One written about you. It is dated. It mentions a trial you never attended, a verdict you never read aloud. But it ends with a sentence that roots itself in your spine. He did not speak because he did not want to remember how closely he resembled the accused. You close the book. The parchment around you rustles not in wind, but in recognition, as if the names have remembered their scribe. A drawer slides open on its own. Inside, a single scroll sealed with wax stamped in a broken circle. You break it. Inside, 27 names, all in your hand, all witnesses you were ordered to record, all marked with the symbol of silence. You do not remember writing them, but your hand does. It trembles now. A voice behind you speaks not aloud, but in the hollows of your bones. To forget is mercy, but you gave it only to yourself. You turn. No one stands there, but the parchment begins to fall from the shelves, one by one, like leaves shedding from a dying tree. They do not hit the ground. They hover, spin, circle. You are at the center. The names whisper as they pass. Not curses, not accusations, just stories, moments, faces. Some call you brother, some call you thief, some simply weak. You fall to your knees. The weight is too much. Existential. Each name is a silence you carried like a sacrament. And now they return. Not for revenge, for remembrance the vault dims. The candle does not follow. You are alone here, as you were then. The parchment lands around you, covering the floor like snow, and each one bears your mark, your quill, your absence. You understand now. The archive is not a punishment. It is a mirror, and it has shown you what was never burned but buried. You gather the scrolls. You begin to read. You gather the scroll. You begin to read. At first, the names are nothing more than ink blurred and foreign. But the more you read, the more your chest tightens. Each one now bears a memory, not in the form of images, but in pressure like hands pressing into your ribcage from the inside. One name uncoils a face you saw only once, bruised and bleeding, kneeling at the edge of the chapel's garden, whispering for intercession as you walked past pretending not to hear. Another name opens a crack in your vision, a boy, not older than 13, who was led into the sanctuary late at night and never came out the same. You had seen his feet the next morning, barefoot, trailing blood into the latrine hall. You had looked away then. You try now again, but the scroll does not allow it. Your fingers refuse to drop the parchment. The ink glows dimly in the half-light of the vault, as though the names are trying not to fade but to return. You clutch a scroll that feels wet though dry, heavy though weightless. It unfurls itself without your command. This one bears no name, only a mark. A diagonal line through a circle, another symbol you remember but wish you didn't. It was reserved for those who were disappeared without trial. Those for whom even a name was considered dangerous to preserve. Those you were told to erase. You had obeyed. You now remember the room where the orders were given? A chamber behind the scriptorium. The prior's breath had smelled of ink and rot. He had placed the scroll in your hand and said, "Write nothing, and we shall remember nothing." You had nodded. Your fingers obeyed before your conscience ever woke. The parchment vanishes now, turned to smoke, or dust, or worse, silence. Around you, the vault begins to stir, not collapse, not crumble, just shift. Shelves bend, parchment twists. The archive resists being witnessed too long. You hear a humming, now a low, endless note, as though the stone is chanting. You look up. A face emerges from the wall. Not sculpted, not drawn, formed from shadow and dust. It watches you. Just you. Its mouth does not move, but its gaze speaks. If names were erased, who erased yours? The air thickens, your knees ache. Your mouth is dry. You try to answer but find no words. Only a soundless sob, thick with fear or regret. The face fades. A breeze enters the Voltan, impossible breeze. From no doorway, no vent, just presence. And with it comes a new scroll, floating, delicate, landing in your lap. It is sealed with red wax, but not broken. It bears your name, not your current name, not your birth name, but the name you swore never to speak again. You know what it contains. Your own record, your omissions, your silence, your excommunications unspoken. You must read it. You must remember you cracked a seal. Inside is not text. Inside is a mirror, polished silver. You see your face, then behind it, faces, dozens, hundreds, all the names you failed. They do not cry, they do not accuse, they watch, patient, eternal, waiting. The vault begins to darken, not from lack of light, but because your eyes have seen enough. The scroll crumbles, the names fold back into the shelves, and you rise. A door appears where there was none, its handleless bone. You do not hesitate. You walk through. Behind you, the archive seals, its silence complete, its testimony preserved. And in your hand, though you never took it, you now hold a quill, split in half. The symbol, the shame, the sentence. You are ready for judgment, or perhaps ready, finally, to speak.
The book without letters, the chamber does not welcome you. It waits for you to realize you were always meant to return. Its air is thick with something older than wrote, older than dust, something like breath that was never exhaled. At the center, resting on a stone lectern shaped like two joined hands, lies a single book, bound in leather, too smooth to be animal, too warm to be dead. Its cover bears no title, no emblem, only the faint impression of two palms pressed into the hide, as if those who touched it had never quite let go. You approach without command, as if drawn by the quill no longer in your hand but still bleeding through your memory. The book hums, not a sound, but a pressure, like the space around it vibrates with withheld names. You reach toward it. The moment your fingers graze the surface, it opens not page by page, but all at once, inhaling. The pages turn themselves, revealing no text, only faint rizzes in the parchment, words not written, but formed to scar into the material like welts, like burns. You understand. Now this is not parchment, this is skin, human, layered and stitched. Each page a back turned away, a thigh that never ran, a breast that bore silence. You recoil, but the book follows, not with motion, but with presence. It wants to be read, it must be read. And so you return. You place both hands where the others once did, and the room reacts. The light dims, not because anything fades, but because the truth brightens. The first page reveals itself, no ink, only texture. You drag your fingers along the raised lines and hear, in your mind, the voice of a woman. She is not screaming, she is narrating. Her tone flat, almost tired. She speaks of confession, of a tribunal, of being told she would be spared if she named 3 others. She named none, they burned her anyway. But before that, they flayed her, and 1 page of her remains, beneath your hand. Beneath your guilt, you flip to the next, a man this time, his breath ragged in your thoughts. He speaks not to accuse, but to wonder why the monks who fed him, washed him, prayed beside him, did nothing when he vanished into the cellar and returned missing 2 fingers and a name. He remembers your face, not clearly, but enough to say you looked away when he asked for bread afterward. You remember him now, He had cried during Mass. He had considered it weakness. The next page is soft and childlike. It vibrates with a higher pitch. The voice does not speak. It sobs, not of pain. They were promised sanctuary. They were told silence was virtue. They never expected silence could be used as a knife. The page smells faintly of rosemary, the herb you used to hide the scent of rot in the cloisters. It doesn't work yet. The book turns again, faster now. The pages thin, then thicken. You begin to lose count. Dozens, hundreds. Each one vibrates with a memory you refuse to carry. Until now, and as you read, the skin beneath your fingertips begins to blister not from heat, but from resin. You are not reading. You are absorbing. You are becoming. The chamber breathes. The lectern tightens. The book is not opening anymore, it is consuming. Your hands begin to sink into the cover. You try to pull away, but your palms are bonded now. Marked, pressed in, the same way the others had been. You are part of the record you always were. The page is slow. The final one rises. This page is not old, not scarred, it is fresh, raw, wet, and it smells like you. You see your own hand carved into its corner. You see a sentence blistered into the tissue. This is the silence he called sacred. You want to deny it, but the book does not allow lies. You try to speak, your mouth opens, nothing comes. The candle does not flicker. The walls do not echo. Only your heart, unguarded and audible now, in its rhythm of guilt. The book closes slowly, not with judgment, with completion. Your hands withdraw, marked, burned. The palms now mirror those on the cover. The chamber releases you. The lectern crumbles, and in its place remains only a single thread red thin, soaked. You pick it up, it pulses once, and then dissolves. The book is gone, but its imprint remains in your skin. Every line, every silence, every name, the floor shifts. Not, thou, inward. You step forward, through no door, no veil, no wall, only a threshold that recognizes your memory. And now you understand. This trial was never about your actions. It was about the stories you refused to carry. The tribunal never needed to find you guilty. You did that the moment you agreed to forget. The bell that only tolls for the living. There is no sound as you leave the chamber of the book, but your ears ring as if a great scream had just ended and you had been standing at its center. Your hands still tremble, not from pain, but from knowing they are now part of the archive. You do not carry the names. The names carry you. The corridor ahead is narrower than the last. The stone here is warm, almost pulsing, and your feet echo differently now as though each step is no longer taken forward, but back. You cannot remember how many doors you've passed, how many faces you've heard, but you know something has changed. You are not alone. Something follows you, not with footsteps, not with breath, but with memory. You cannot see it, but every time you close your eyes, you feel it standing just behind your shoulder, waiting for you to forget it again. You emerge into a vast courtyard with walls too high to climb, their tops lost in fog. A bell tower rises in the middle, ancient and cracked, yet impossibly tall. No stairs, no ladders, just a narrow arch at the base, where the door has long since rotted away. The ground is not earth, it is boned, not scattered or broken, but laid flat, orderly, like paving stones. Each femur and rib interlocked to support the weight of what must never fall. You walk across them. They do not crack. They remember. Inside the tower, it is dark, but not blind. The shadows move slowly, like monks in procession. At the center, suspended by rusted chains that vanish into the blackness above, hangs the bell, massive scion carved in a script older than ink. It sways slightly, though there is no wind beneath it. An altar, and on the altar, yours from long ago, clean folded, waiting. You do not remember leaving it here, but you remember wearing it, the weight of it, the way it pulled at your shoulders, not with gravity, but with expectation. Next to the robe, a cord, frayed at the ends, a noose, repurposed, or never used. Above the altar, etched in faint soot, the living toll the bell for others. Who tolls it for them? You step closer. The bell trembles. A sound begins. Not loud. A hum, a debit passes, not through your ears, but your ribs. You place your hand on the robe. It is warm, not from the sun. From breath. Someone once lived in it recently, or is still living in it now. You lift it. Beneath the fabric, a name is stitched. You do not recognize, but the thread bleeds slightly, and your fingers react with the certainty of old betrayal. You try to remember who you wore it for, who you wore it against. A faint bell sound cuts through your thoughts. Once, only once, and your knees buckle, not from fear, from weight. The bell has judged, and it tolls only for the living, because the dead have no need for warning. The altar cracks. From its seam, smoke pours not upward, but sideways, forming the shape of a man without a face. He carries no weapon, no book, only a single bell clapper in his hand wrapped in cloth. He holds it toward you. You reach out. You do not take it, but your fingers wrap around it nonetheless. You are holding it now, The man dissolves. The altar is gone. The bell is above you, and the chain is tightening. That is the task. That was always the task. You pull once. The bell a sound echoes far, far below. Not in the ground in memory. You pull again. The echo comes back different. This time a voice faint but unmistakably your own, praying, whispering, pleading, let me forget. The sound chokes itself. The bell glows faintly. A third toll. You do not pull it. It tolls itself, and the ground shakes, not from weight, from reckoning. You are not alone. The tower is not empty. The bones beneath you begin to stir. You see hands pushing up through the cracks, but not rising. They are not here to take. They are here to witness. They reach to the sky, fingers open, as though trying to grasp the toll that now fades into silence. You look up. The chains have gone slack. The bell rests. And, it has judged not guilty, not innocent, simply incomplete. And in that incompletion, you're allowed to move forward. A doorway opens where no wall stood. It leads nowhere, but you walk toward it because what lies beyond is no longer about memory. It is about becoming what the memories could not save. The tribunal without faces. You pass through the doorway not with certainty but with the surrender of someone who no longer believes escape is part of the design. And beyond it lies no hallway, no chamber, no stairs, only a great circular void carved from stone so dark it drinks the faint light that lingers on your shoulders like regret. There are no torches here, no candles, and yet you see everything. Not with eyes, with memory. The walls ripple gently as if coated in oil or breath, and above you suspended from nothing hovers the shape of a tribunal, 12 seats arranged in a crescent rising above. A low dais where you now stand, though you do not recall walking. The seats are occupied, but not by people, not by monks, not by accusers. Each chair holds a silhouette, translucent and flickering, like smoke shaped by thought. They are not still. They breathe in tandem with your own pulse. You cannot see their faces because they do not wear any. Their heads are smooth, like statues melted too soon, and their hands, if you could call them hands, are nothing more than suggestions of form. Still, they observe. Still, they judge. You do not know what they see, but you feel their attention like a weight pressing on your spine. Behind you, a bell echoes faintly, as if remembering you from moments ago. It tolls once. The tribunal leans forward, not as a group. As a tide, you open your mouth to speak. No one instructs you to. But silence here is heavier than any sentence. The moment your voice enters the space, the air changes. I remember. You begin, and the walls ripple wider. You try to continue, but words falter. You do not know what they demand to hear, so you offer them what you can. Images. A woman crying in the chapel, kneeling at a pew you passed 100 times. A boy in the orchard, looking at you as though you could save him. A brother who smiled as he signed a false testimony, and you who nodded without correction. The tribunal does not move. They do not react. But the room does. The floor beneath you becomes soft, not with water. With ash it clings to your feet, not to bind, but to remember. One of the figures lifts an arm, no fingers. Only gesture ran from above descends a scroll. It does not fall. It glides. It hovers before you. You do not touch it, but it opens. There is no ink, no seal, only a single sentence etched into the fibers. You were there, and you said nothing. You nod not because you accept, but because denying now would be another silence added to the ledger. The tribunal waits. You speak again. I did not stop it, but I did not know how. This time, the room trembles. A second scroll appears. It does not land before you. It lands behind you, and from its parchment rises a voice not yours. A girl, younger than any you remember. She says your name, the old one, the one you used before you were initiated. Her voice is kind, not accusatory, but tired. You knew how. You just chose not to want it badly enough. You close your eyes. You see her now. She had been the one taken first. They said she had fever, but you saw the bruises. You had known better. You had said nothing. The tribunal begins to hum. Not audibly, emotionally. A resonance that climbs the walls and circles your ribs. You fall to your knees. Not to beg, to breathe. The air is thinning. You cannot lie here. You cannot flee. You can only carry. A third scroll descends. It is blank, completely. You look to the tribunal. They say nothing, but in their stillness, you understand this is your chance. Not to explain, not to erase, to speak. You lift your hand, and with no quill, no ink, you press your fingers to the parchment, and your skin burns. Not with pain, with history. The lines on your palm write themselves into the surface. Names, moments, pauses. All the silences you thought were buried. The scroll darkens, it seals itself, it rises, the tribunal straightens. You have given them not guilt, not defense, but truth, and it is enough. The chairs begin to dissolve, one by one, until only one remains. The final shape stands, approaches, its face now forming slowly a mirror. You see yourself not as you are, as you were, before the robes, Before the vows, before the forgetting, the mirror bows and vanishes. The room is silent, but this time, the silence is different. Not a sentence, a space. You are free to leave. You do not know where to go, but the path has opened. Behind the tribunal, a narrow door now pulses with breath. You walk toward it, and as you cross the threshold, you realize the trial is no longer about what you did. It is about what you are willing to carry now. The garden that withers backward, the door behind the faceless tribunal does not creak when it opens, it exhales, like a lung that has held its breath too long in the dark. And as you step through, the air thickens not with dust, but with scent, earthy and damp, the kind that clings to fingernails and the back of old teeth. And though no sun greets you, everything ahead is green, impossibly green, stretching in terraces that spiral downward like the inside of a broken shell. It is a garden, or what once pretended to be one, yet the leaves here curl inward. The petals collapse as if rewinding their bloom, and every stem trembles as though it regrets ever rising. The path before you is lined with plants, you remember, not from books, but from the edges of memory work. Foxglove, monk's hood, and others with no names, just shapes that once grew in places you were forbidden to name. You walk, and each step forward seems to pull something backward behind you. Flowers uncurl, not toward life, but toward memory, and the soil turns from black to red to gray with every shift of your weight. At the center of the garden stands a tree, twisted and hollow, with no leaves, but from its limbs hang ribbons, dozens, hundreds, each one tied in a child's knot, the kind taught in haste and fear. The wind here does not blow, it whispers in patterns that resemble voices you once ignored. You approach the tree and realize the ribbons are not cloth. They are strips of robe, from novices, from those you once told to confess more quietly. Each strip bears a symbol burned into it, a triangle, a broken chalice, a pair of clasped hands cut at the wrist. You reach out, and the moment your skin touches the bark, the garden shifts. It does not vanish, it remembers. The tree groans, and beneath your feet, the soil breaks open, revealing a root system that pulses like veins. From the earth rise shapes not fully formed, not corpses, not ghosts, but memories made flesh. They do not speak, they kneel. Each one places a hand upon the ground, and where they touch, the grass withers backward, revealing scenes. A woman dragged from her cottage, crying out in a tongue no one else had learned. You had written a name phonetically, carelessly. The ink had smudged. No one ever knew how to say it again. A boy who carved scripture into his arms because the tribunal told him his voice was not holy. You had watched him bleed beneath the lectern. You had recorded it as devotional excess. A friend who confessed not sin, but love, and for it was locked beneath the nave until he forgot how to speak. You had offered him bread through the grate and never asked his name again. The garden weeps now, not with rain, with petals. The tree shudders and drops of fruit, round and pale and pulsing. You lift it, it is soft. You press it to your chest and feel your heart beat slow, then speed, then fracture. Inside, the fruit is a voice, not yours, not theirs. A synthesis. It says only this: growth is what memory fears most. You crush the fruit in your hand. It melts, not into pulp, but into ash. The ribbons around you flutter violently and release themselves from the branches. They spiral upward into the skyless canopy. The tree begins to crumble, not rot, disappear like an admission finally spoken. You fall to your knees as the soil beneath you. A path emerges not forward, but inward. A spiral staircase dug into the garden's heart. You descend. The air cools. The walls tighten. Every step you take draws a vine across your back, marking you with roots, as if to say, you belong to what you buried. At the bottom lies a chamber no wider than a monk's cell. On its floor, a single seed, black, shaped like an eye that never closes. You touch it, it vibrates, and the whisper returns. To remember is to plant, to carry is to become soil. You swallow it, not because you want to, because it demands to be carried. And when you stand, your spine feels different, heavier, taller, as if something has begun to grow inside you that no longer answers to silence. The prayer that could not die. You rise from the spiral chamber with the seed still pulsing behind your ribs. And though no voice tells you to, you know the path ahead is no longer beneath the earth, but within the marrow of memory itself. The garden above has vanished. In its place stands a cloistered hallway, moonlit, though the sky is black. Along the walls hang veils, translucent sheets of forgotten scripture, shifting not in wind, but in breath. Each one bears a prayer unfinished, a line left to die mid. You pass them slowly, not reading but feeling. One burns, one bleeds, one hums with the cadence of your name, as it once was spoken by someone who no longer believes you exist. The hallway ends in a chapel without altar, without pews, only a circle of candles that refuse to flicker. In their center, a kneel empty weight, and you do not kneel yet. Your body hesitates, Not from defiance, but from knowing that once you bow here, something in you will remain forever prostrate. You move toward it. Each step triggers a whisper from the candles, not audible words, but prayers once offered in silence, now echoing back as judgment. You kneel. The floor is colder than stone. The light shifts, not brighter, not dimmer, but sharper. You feel the seed in your chest extend gently toward the ground, and then you hear it. A voice, not outside, not inside. Beneath it speaks a name, yours, but not the one you use, not the one you took, the one you buried. It speaks again, this time, a phrase. The last prayer is never heard by the divine. It is heard by what you left behind. You lower your head, you do not speak. The chapel breathes, and then the candles dim, one by one, until only the one nearest you remains. It flickers not with fire, but with memory. You look into it. You see her, the girl from the cloisters, the one whose hymns were always, the one whose hands were always red from scrubbing, the one who tried to leave and found the gate sealed. She is praying, not for salvation, for release. Her mouth forms a sentence you remember. Let him know what silence costs. The flame flickers, becomes her eyes, then her hands, then ash. You blink. The Nila beneath you cracks. From the crack roots emerge. Roots made of words. They coil around your legs, not a trap to anchor. The prayer has begun. You open your mouth. The sound that emerges is not yours. It is many. A chorus, the voices of those you did not listen to, now borrowing your throat. They pray not to be forgiven, not to be named, only to be remembered. You weep, not from sorrow, from clarity. Every syllable burns into your lungs. Every pause is a sentence. The chapel disappears. There is no architecture now. Only air, only echo, only the weight of prayer spoken too late. You fall forward. The candles go out, but the light remains.